on 531 VI.
It is 7:32. This is Pacific Morning's Great Heavy Company this Tuesday. Now, Dr. Aiden Kiely is the head of science at Aorere College and has just won the Prime Minister's Science Teacher Prize for his work in championing equity in education. He joins us this morning to discuss the win. A very good morning to you. Congratulations. Firstly, what does it mean, this recognition?
Wow, that's a good question. It means a lot. It means recognition for a lot of the work that we've done here over, I guess, the last 10 years. And like you say, championing equity in science and trying to make connections between science and our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I suppose let's start with your journey into teaching and ultimately what brought you to Aotearoa College in South Auckland.
Well, my background is in research science. Before I became a teacher, I worked in molecular biology, and my sort of research background was thinking about how do insects, who are pests and carriers of disease, how do they actually locate and find and detect humans or fruit, and therefore how do they navigate the world, and therefore how can we stop them from spreading those diseases or eating our crops or things like that. So that was an awesome opportunity which led me overseas, and ultimately the the change in science was such that I needed a change. I needed to get into something stable, and that was when I found Ako Matatupu, or Teach First New Zealand, who are another great champion of equity in education. You know, their mission is to ensure that every student in Aotearoa has a great opportunity to reach their potential, and that led me to consider teaching as a viable career option. So at that time, this was around 2015, 2016, the process was a little bit different, but essentially a school said, yes, we'd like to have a Teach First participant teacher. And they coordinated with Teach First and said, look, we've got this candidate, we think he'd be a good fit. And so I came down to meet Gregory Pierce, who was the principal at the time. And well, I'm very grateful to him. He offered me a job as a trainee teacher here at Aorere College, and starting in 2016, and I've been here and loving it since. So you start off as a trainee and you sort of work your way through the journey of, you know, a qualified teacher and a registered teacher and other bits of responsibility here and there, and now I'm the head of science.
Oh, there we go. Hey, look, so as has been pointed out, you've been recognised for your dedication to equity in science education. Now, it begs the question, what does equity look like in your classroom?
Inside the classroom, we try really hard to ensure that everyone's identity is recognised as part of the value of the student and the background that they bring. It's not isolated from what that student is. You know, they're not an empty vessel for you to provide knowledge towards. It's about making those connections with them. So it looks like trying really hard to build a learning program that recognizes where our community comes from, and that's a really diverse place, and it's a big challenge to do so. And at the same time, trying to make sure that students are equipped to be successful in whatever pathway that they go on to choose later in life. So, and, you know, that's a big thing as well, because we know higher education and the university systems and things like that, they have their metric about, you know, what a student needs to have in order to advance their learning. And so we work really hard to ensure, you know, that the student is recognized, but also that there's high expectations and that we believe in their potential to do wonderful things, whether that's in science or just as citizens for whom science is really important in their decision making for them and their whānau later in life.
Yeah. Here is another, perhaps, ultimate question on how do you actually keep students engaged, especially when science can sometimes feel ultimately like a difficult subject to grasp onto?
Another great question, and it's something, you know, we battle all the time. So I think it comes down to can we connect it in some relevant way? Can we make it situationally interesting? So that means kids come into science and what do they know about it? They know about explosions and potions. And so it's kind of capturing, that excitement around, can we do this in a controlled way, but also being very purposeful with that work. So they might not even recognize that they're learning something, or that it is this situation where, we've got this interest, but now, so what? What's the next question that we can answer? And that's a really hard thing, because we know that our students come from lots of different backgrounds. So they come with lots of different experiences and their own perceptions of themselves as science learners. So that's a big challenge. So what we look at doing really hard is, how do we communicate with the students science ideas? How do we show them that they do come from long lines of successful scientists? How do we connect them to people that look like them, that have science careers, and kind of try and paint that picture of science learning and science success as, it may be challenging, but it is certainly within your skill base. And how do you sort of do a 5-year journey where ultimately they can choose to do a science career if they want to? And look, if not, we make it interesting, try and build up, the science literacy skills and the general numeracy that students need to be successful, so that at least if they're not that engaged in the science, they are picking up skills that are valuable and help them with their qualification and, hopefully later career options.
Indeed. And, have you seen shifts in how your students see themselves as scientists, engineers, or researchers? Seeing that, this could be a viable career option for them?
Well, we are seeing numbers in our senior school. So I'm just for the community, our school is roughly about 50% Pacifica students, maybe 20% Maori, maybe a little bit under that, and then about 25% Indian and Fijian Indian, with a few percentage from every corner of the world. So we're still battling a situation where our senior school specialist subjects, chemistry, physics, and biology, are still heavily are not being chosen in the same numbers by our Pacific and our Maori learners. So that's something that we're aware of and actively working to turn that around, because we know that students make that choice and it does close off certain pathways. But we do see some building success. We've got our Te Whatu Ora supports our Pacific Health Science Academy. So that has started a few years ago, and we're really starting to see momentum now, where before we were battling to fill our cohorts, and now we've got we're turning students away who would like to be in the Health Science Academy. And so that provides a whole lot of opportunity in terms of seeing role models, connecting to the health system, getting interest in a whole bunch of different career pathways. It's not just nurse, engineer, or doctor. There's 80 something other health career options out there. So it's this exposure over time throughout the college journey that hopefully we're seeing some the numbers pick up. But we do have wonderful success stories. We have students from Aorere, 3rd and 4th year medical school at University of Auckland. We've got wonderful nurses that have qualified through our college. So it's definitely, with two hats, you can look at the individual and see that there are some real success stories, and we can look at other numbers and say, we've still got quite a lot of work to do to ensure that is seen as something that's viable, and that is me, that is an option I can have in my future.
Yeah, indeed. And look, not to veer off too much off topic, but still keen to get your perspective. We've got the upcoming budget. The government says it's not a lolly scramble. Education has, inevitably been rocky for the current administration and previous governments too. I mean, what's your message to them when it comes to implementing programs that perhaps could make a difference?
Oh, well, we know that a hungry child can't learn properly. We know that a child that's coming from a home that's cold or overcrowded can't learn as well as they could. And so often our frontline staff, our wonderful support team, are dealing with things that it just staggers me that in a society, a country like Aotearoa, that we can't do more to alleviate those. So, we've got curriculum changes that, are changing year on year, it seems. We've got all sorts of staffing issues as a result of this historic underpayment and the really hard part about going down to receive the award and meet the Prime Minister was, as we were arriving in Wellington, the news came out that they were rushing through the pay equity cancellation across 33 sectors. That's a huge number of wonderful female women workers that are we know are historically and overrepresented in our Māori and Pacific workforce as well. So not to get too political, but you did ask the question. I think the government has a lot to answer for when it comes to ensuring that our community has every opportunity that they could, because if the potential is there, our students are just as bright, they're just as clever, and sometimes they just need a bit of a helping hand. And it just seems so shameful to me that our government can prioritize landlords and cigarette companies and things, and not our frontline health workers and our communities in need. So I really hope, with very, very little expectation, that a quick chat with the Prime Minister last week was enough to have him change his mind a little bit on some of these decisions.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you very much for that frank and honest answer there. I mean, I thought I might have been throwing a curveball at you, but it's so good to get your perspective as someone who is on the ground and you see it every day. Any final words from yourself before we wrap up?
Oh, I'm just immensely grateful to the Aorere community and the wider South Auckland community for the work that everyone does, and the recognition that comes with the award. But it's been a team effort over a really long period of time. So just a big thank you to all of my students and colleagues that have contributed along the way.
Awesome stuff. That is Dr. Aiden Kiely, the recipient of the Prime Minister's Science Teacher Prize. You have a good rest of your day, eh?
Thank you very much.